Welcome to Trendy with Kim Allison. I am so excited. This month is Black History Month, and to top it, to celebrate, I am showcasing Black stylists all month long, starting with myself. And that is up on YouTube right now if you want to go check it out, YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, which new episodes air every single Sunday. If you are new, welcome. If you're already a part of the Trendy tribe, I appreciate you. Your likes, your comments, your subscribing, your reviews all make a huge impact on the show. Thank you so much. You are not going to want to miss this interview with Essence China. Enjoy. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Trendy with Kim Allison. Today, I have the honor and the privilege to introduce to you guys Essence China. She's an accomplished natural hair artist and the creative mind behind the signature style, the Essence. Her incredible work has graced the cover of Essence magazine and other national publications. We're going to dive into her journey, inspirations, and techniques and learn more about what drives her creativity. So let's get inspired, everybody. Essence, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and like I said, it's amazing. I'm so glad you're here and you carved out some time to jump on the show. Little bit about me. I know all about you, but we've never met. So everyone, this is our first meeting on the screen. And one thing that I am most passionate about is helping the next generation of hair because I think in order to keep our industry strong, they need the generation before them, right? The ones who laid the foundation, who can just because we didn't grow up online, we didn't grow up learning from a 30-second TikTok reel. We actually had hands-on, boots on the ground type of training that it's not as popular today. So I
Right.
think that's part of why I'm doing this. I'm not necessarily an educator. I realize that is not my wheelhouse. I love conversations. That's what I loved most, working behind the chair.
Right.
Obviously I like hair, but the conversations are it just comes natural, which is why I created this platform. And this is one thing I can do. I can give the next generation is just keep feeding them amazing, incredible journeys and stories. So
Love
enough about me, and let's get to you.
it.
So let's start with your background. Essence, can you share your journey into hair artistry and what inspired you specifically to specialize in natural hair?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Glendale, Arizona. I'm a native, and
Oh, so am I.
yeah, so growing up out here, we my mother would get my sister and I's hair braided, and it would take hours, right? And during that time, my sister getting her hair braided, I would just pay attention, and I didn't realize that I was like learning and picking it up and growing a passion for it. And so somewhere around the time where Crisscross had came out, my brother grew his hair out and he wanted braids. He wanted to look like Crisscross. And so I was just so excited because now I actually have a canvas to practice on like a real person. And so my brother, he became my guinea pig, for lack of a better word. And I realized how creative I could get with it. But not long after that, one of my mother's friends had seen, my creativity, and she had a son who actually was biracial. And so she wanted to get his hair braided. And it was very challenging for me because of the texture. And so it just made me want to really just master like braiding and all of that. And so I just grew an affinity for natural hair just because I just love the creative side of braiding. I never really was like into like the cuts and the colors or anything like that. It was just like I love my natural hair and I love doing creative things with our natural hair. And so from that point on, I just started working with high school friends. And my mother, she allowed me to turn our laundry rooms. We had a fairly large laundry room into like a salon suite. And we're talking the 90s, right? So, um,
Wow.
yeah, she went and bought like some lawn chairs from a yard sale. and she allowed that to be my chairs for my waiting area. And so it was a graduation. Like I didn't start in the laundry room, but over time, once my mother seen that I was taking it serious, she was just like, okay, well then let's go ahead and build you something. And so from probably about 16 or 17, like I was doing hair full time after school. And then when I graduated high school, I mean, that was just what I did.
You
Hair.
know, I think that's really important, as I don't know if you have children, but I have children and grandchildren now, and it's important to support their dreams. And that has a lot to do with how well or how much confidence we have and how we are able to succeed, throughout our lives. We need that foundation, that foundational support, if you will.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I have definitely both of that from my mother and from my father. My mother was a nurse, and my father was an entrepreneur, and so he saw the entrepreneurial side of it. He was like, "You can get this money." so, so they
Sounds
both
like
feel
a
it.
dad.
Yeah, they feel it from different aspects, but they both greatly supported me, and yeah, so it was a blessing.
No, that's amazing. Who would you say, Essence, is your biggest influence in your career? You know, not necessarily with, well, I guess because we're talking about hair. So as a natural hairstylist, who would you say is your biggest influence? Is there anyone other than just your natural knack for it who inspired you? Or did you?
Mhm. To be honest with you, I mean, I can't really say that I had like an inspiration when it came to hair. It just seemed like it was innate, inherent. I mean, I probably went to a hair salon a few times,
Mhm.
and maybe the lady who braided, our hair, but it wasn't like I had that many things or people that I was exposed to even be inspired. It was just like I really enjoyed doing this. So, I mean, through over the years, I mean, I've seen people who did really great things with not just hair itself, but in the industry with building brands and having sustained longevity in the industry. So those were more inspirations. But I think this may sound crazy. I'm probably more an entrepreneur than I am a hairstylist. Even though I did
Mm,
amazing things in hairstyling, I think I was more of the entrepreneur of like, how can I make this, make a living for myself?
business.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that part, and you're a combination of both, and that's okay. I'm kind of the
Mhm.
same way. I came into hair because I wanted to have my own business. It was that
Mhm.
first, and then hair came natural, and I knew I could
Mhm.
succeed,
Right.
so I resonate with that. And, which is a great segue into the next topic that I have for you, because you just said, you really didn't have anyone who you said, "Ooh, I wanna be her when I grow up," or him, you know, which is why you had the ability to create your own technique. You were innovative, right?
Mhm.
Because most people today and yesterday and, down the line, you're inspired by someone like Kobe. It was Michael Jordan first. There's always someone first. So it's really
Right.
hard to be the pioneer and be the actual first of anything. And so the
Mhm.
fact that you were able to do that speaks to just that natural, whatever it is you have, that thing, whatever that is. So tell me about that. Like, what did you have an aha moment where you're like, "Ooh, how did this style come to be?"
The hairstyle, to be honest, I just like different things, right? I do feel like we gather inspiration from different places, and sometimes it's subconscious and we're not even aware.
Yeah.
But I just wanted something that was just different and just carried a different vibe. So I was doing like these Biggie Smalls braids, and they're pretty much just alternating from one size of braid to a really smaller size of braid, and it just gives an illusion. Well, what ended up happening was I was working with this photographer. This was my first professional shoot. And so I had got this photographer out of New York because he came
Mm.
highly recommended in our industry. And
Yeah.
so I made this investment in myself. He comes to Arizona. We're in the middle of the shoot, and I originally had did like one particular style with this hairstyle. So he wanted me to take the hairstyle down because of the way it was pinned. he was like, take it down and switch it up. And I'm like, switch it up. Like, this
Yeah.
is the style, you know what I
Right.
mean? And so it forced me to be creative. So to be honest with you, the first style was just the style that I had created. The second style, which was the one that took off, was the one that was because I was forced to be even more creative with the style, and there was only so much I could do with it, right? And so he captured that hairstyle, and little did I know that it was going to be iconic. I thought it was cute,
Super cute.
but it ended up taking off. Like it went crazy
Yeah, so maybe I mean, he saw something and he pushed you to that next level for you.
for
What
sure.
and who was he again? Did you say? Did I miss
He,
that?
his name is Keston Duke.
Okay,
Hmm.
cool. I like
Yeah.
that. And so from there, and so because when I was doing my research, I saw Biggie Smalls and I thought, oh shoot, I is she talking about actual Biggie Small? I don't know nothing about braids. So I'm like, is
You're
he
right.
talking about Biggie Smalls or is this another technique? So thank you for that clarification. So
For sure.
what you already talked about the process and kind of what it took to develop, those styles. So how has it been seeing your signature styles, gain that recognition and be featured internationally is what I read. Yeah?
Yeah. Hmm. To be honest with you, it wasn't the easiest because we're talking, my hairstyle got published in 2011 in Essence magazine. And so I did the photo shoot like January of 2011. And then the purpose was to get publicized or to get published, but I didn't know that it would actually land in Essence magazine. And so the photographer reached out and was like, hey, no, actually, I take it back. I was in Atlanta at a hair show, ran into him, and he was like, Essence picked up your work. And I'm like, okay. He said it so casual. I just didn't really know what he meant. So next thing I know, I had a friend Facebook message me and was like, "Oh my gosh, you're in Essence!" And so there was this whole like my third of a page spread of the salon, and my signature style was like the biggest thing on the page. And so yeah, it was amazing at first.
Uh-oh.
And the reason why it was amazing at first was because here it is. I'm in Essence magazine. My salon is being recognized by name. My name is in there, and that's great. But this is right at the like emergence of social media and Instagram. Instagram was like just taking off. So
Like
now,
2000, 2010, right? Somewhere in there
10,
where
yeah, 10,
really
11.
got mhm.
Right. So what happens is this hairstyle, I don't know if I put it out or a photographer put it out, but there was no watermarks on it. So even though it's been in Essence magazine, now it's literally being proliferated all over the internet and nobody knows who did this style.
Oh,
And so
no.
that's when it got crazy because not only is it all over the internet, it's literally on billboards. I mean, anywhere that you can think of, all up and down. My brother, he lived in New York or still lives in New York, and it's everywhere in New York. It's in Africa, it's in Portugal, it's in London, it's in Paris, it's everywhere because the hairstyle was so amazing that hairstylists wanted to put it on the front of their billboards and their salons to draw in traffic. And so at that point, I was like furious because I'm just like, these people are putting on flyers and business cards and they're acting as if they did this style or they could do this style. And so I was mad for a minute. I ain't even gonna lie. And then I had to get to a place where I was like, I can't control this. And for me to be angry about it, like, what is that going to do? And the only thing that I can do is to transmute that energy and really continue to create and to continue to build the brand. So when people do, come to find out who it is, like it all matches up, if that makes sense. Like I can't just be
Does
defeated
make
and not
sense.
do anything. And so that's what I ended up doing. I just kept on creating. I kept on posting the style and different angles of the style. So it was like, these are style angles that people aren't seeing to where it's like, oh, okay, she's the creator of this style. And so over time, I did get the recognition. But I look at it like this. If I had not, well, let me put it like this. If it had been watermarked, I doubt it would have been able to spread the way that it spread, if that makes sense.
Well,
Because
yeah,
I knew,
it would have put a like almost like a gate in front of it or some type of barrier, if you will.
Exactly. And so for me, I'm glad that I didn't have that foresight because I think I would have stunted its growth in the sense of, now I can say I have a hairstyle that was all over the world, that was on every flyer and business card. I mean, because I can't tell you how many times I would go to hair shows and hairstylists would stop me and say, I can't tell me how many times a client has brought this hairstyle in requesting it. Like it was like flower. And so because of that, I then was able to appreciate it again because I'm just like, you know what, I can say that my hairstyle, is iconic.
Oh my gosh. Like that blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah, for
Sometimes
sure.
we don't know the why, until it emerges just out of the shadows. You're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, that was why."
Good. Yeah,
Meanwhile, you were busy building and, what do you call it? Just exploring and probably getting better at your craft and trying to create another iconic hair braiding style, right?
for sure.
So, can you share, Essence, any memorable experiences or highlights from your career that stand out to you? That would be one. Are there any
Mhm.
others?
I mean, there's probably a couple. I mean, changing the law was one of them.
And let's
And
talk about that for a second,
for
because
sure.
that is right on target.
I think a lot of Black women just got to a place where they wanted to embrace their natural and authentic selves and their own beauty because we've always been shown another standard.
Her iconic hair design featured in Essence magazine and in the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C.
Whatever flows out of you, you give to your client, and your client's able to just be able to wear it as almost a piece of art.
But it wasn't always easy for her to be that artist. Arizona law made it difficult to open up her own hair braiding salon.
They told me I had to have a license.
At the time, Arizona's Board of Cosmetology required 1,600 hours of classroom instruction, even though not a single hour of natural hair braiding instruction was included in the program.
I took up issue with it because the things that I did were
Yeah, and you can kind of walk us through from here. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like I told you, I'm born and raised in Arizona, and I knew that there were limits to what I could do in Arizona because of the way that the law was. And so I had moved away to Maryland and I was living in Maryland for a few years. And then I had an encounter with God. I moved back to Arizona and I really was just in this place of frustration because I knew that hair was what I wanted to do at this point. But I also felt like there were ceilings here. Whereas in Maryland, you didn't have to have a license to do hair, to do natural hair. And so I was able to build clientele. Things were going really well for me in Maryland. And so when I moved back to Phoenix, I felt led to call the State Board of Cosmetology. And I told them, what I did. And I was like, I've been doing hair professionally for, X amount of years. I do braids, locks, and twists. What do I need to do in order to be legal in the state or, to be permissible? And
Right.
they pretty much told me I had to have a license. And so, as the regulations are, licensing for cosmetology is like a year and a half of school, 10,000 plus dollars. And it wasn't so much the time, it just for me, it didn't seem like it made sense because like I'm not trying to do all of the things that they teach in cosmetology school. And I felt like it was unfair because there's no specialized licensing for what I did. And while I understood sanitation and the things that are necessary when it comes to hair care, they didn't have any options for that. And so, I got off the phone frustrated and feeling a little defeated because I just like I'm not doing that. And I'm a rebel. So I
I
kind of buck
gather.
systems anyway. So I was just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And so not long after that, I felt led to look for a law firm. And so I was 23 at the time, and I just was like, okay, look for a law firm. So I just started looking for law firms, and I came across maybe two or three. And by the third one I contacted, I shared my story. Now, the reason why I believe that seed was also there is because I had already lived in Maryland, and the law was such that you didn't have to have a license there. So I felt like if it was different in one state, it could potentially be different here. And
Mhm.
so I shared my story and I just told them, because my thing is like, you're not teaching braiding, you're not testing on it, and you're not enhancing anything that I already do, you know? And so we filed within a few months of me meeting with maybe like a month of me meeting this lawyer, Essence Farmer versus the State Board of Cosmetology. And that was 20 years ago.
Gosh, that is, I mean, that may be more iconic than the hairstyle, the essence. My goodness. And at 23 years old to have that fire in you, that speaks to who you are for sure. You say you're a rebel.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it
I
was.
mean, I don't know that that's we're all made differently. And thank God
Mhm.
for those that do have that. Gosh, I mean, for a lack of a better word, I don't even know what the word is, but more of that leadership quality,
Mhm.
where you create opportunity for yourself. And a lot of people,
Absolutely.
they wouldn't bother. They just, oh well, I guess I won't braid professionally, because I need to go to school, whatever, right?
Yeah.
What do you have for new stylist that, the young Essence, for example, she's out there somewhere. So what
Yeah.
would you tell her now? And knowing everything you know now, she wants to create her own iconic style. Where does she start? What
Yeah.
what what advice would you give her? Or
I
he?
think, yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately we have to learn how to think outside of the box. Like I said, I was already creative, but I was forced to even think, to stretch myself even more and think outside the box. And, the name of my company is called Rare Essence. So obviously, Essence is my first name. Rare, it speaks to us being unique and different. And I think that sometimes we don't realize that if we're following a trend and following a path, a lot of times it takes us away from the pioneering and takes us away from real creativity. And so I think that once we can start recognizing that we're rare and we have something very significant to contribute, it'll cause us to start doing just different things. But sometimes it's hard for us to do those different things if we're so concerned about things being acceptable, if that makes sense. And
It
so I would
does.
just tell them to really just think outside the box and to trust themselves, because what I come across with a lot of hairstylists is that lack of confidence because they don't trust themselves. They don't trust their creativity. So that would be something I would say.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And let's see. And I'm sure whoever she is or he, they are creating something great as we speak. Do
For
you
sure.
have, other than your signature, do you have a favorite? Do you even you don't work behind the chair anymore. So, and we're going to talk about that as well. You have an education platform. You have an online education platform before it was even cool, and a thing. Because you've had yours for many years, correct?
Yeah, like 2015.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I think that it blew up in 2020 when everybody was home from COVID. That's
Oh
when
yeah.
the world became educators. And I've talked
Mm-hmm.
about this with other stylists who are really good educators, that I think to some degree that's it kind of watered down the industry because it was anybody and everybody. You
Mm-hmm.
actually learned somebody else's technique and then you went and now you're teaching it to other people,
This
basically,
is true. This is
right?
true.
And so for you, when you created that online education back in the day, were you also still a salon owner braiding behind the chair? And how did it go from that to education? What took you from behind the chair?
Great question. So when my hairstyle blew up, not only was it in Essence magazine, later on that year, Essence magazine had a hype hair or hot hair edition, and it was on the cover of that edition. And so I'm getting all this publicity. I'm getting phone calls from all across the country of hairstylists because it's being so requested of how I did this style. So now it's like that teaching actually is being pulled out of me because I didn't want to teach. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was so fearful of teaching because I really didn't think that I had it in me to even teach. So even though I own a salon, I have stylists and I'm educating them, it's very informal. It's just like, hey, we got to make sure that we keep the brand strong. So nothing can leave these doors if they don't approve, so
Right,
I need to make sure
exactly.
the standard is up. So now I'm getting these phone calls, and I already knew prior to all of this that I was going to teach because it
Mhm.
had already been spoken over my life, but I didn't understand like how it would come about. So it literally just came about because of this hairstyle. And then I embraced it. And when I embraced it, it was very scary for me. I ain't gonna lie. Like the very first person I taught, I was shaking in my boots because I was just thinking about the level of investment that they've made in themselves, and what if I can't deliver?
Yeah.
But after I got over that hurdle and I realized, much like you, yes, it was the hair, but it was the conversations, it was the connection. And then furthermore, it went into the empowerment. Because as I began to teach and I started traveling and going to different cities, we would do 2-day hands-on trainings. And I realized that there was a greater draw. Like these
Yeah.
hairstylists, yes, they wanted to learn how to braid hair, but it was something deeper. And
Yeah.
that's what really kind of had me continue because I really wanted to help them. And it was more of a confidence issue for them to believe that they could be someone great as well.
What did you see when you entered into education? Were you surprised by that you could teach somebody something? Because we always feel like what I'm doing, this is not new. I'm just doing what's been done, right? And so
Yeah.
when you get new students or even anybody I've ever mentored, I'm always surprised that, like, for example, there's a recent post on my educational platform where there was a hair cutter, and she was cutting just like a one length. And so you cut it right head up, and then
Mhm.
you put the head down so you can clean up the bottom and get that real blunt precision line. And the comments, it's like 50 something thousand views, and all these comments like, "Oh my god, I never knew that. Oh my god, now it makes sense." And I'm like, "Wow, that you
Yeah.
didn't know that." I mean, and fine, because now you do, which is what this whole thing is about. But were you surprised with what you could teach that wasn't known by people who braid hair and have been braiding hair? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think we
Yeah.
tend to minimize the things that, either we've mastered or have come easy to us, not realizing to somebody else, they may have a passion, but they may not have the proper techniques. And so they
Yeah.
genuinely just want to learn. And so I had to think about how do I break this down to where like what's in my brain and not just in my brain, but what's also in my muscles and my fingers to where they could actually grasp it. So it challenged me, but I also realized that, that teaching capacity was in me. But I mean, it would be the smallest thing that, they may have been braiding for 5 or 10 years, but then here it is. I tell them to tweak this and they do it and they're like, oh, light bulb goes off, And so it was very fulfilling for me because it's like, people are being able to improve, not just in their skill set, but also in their confidence and even in their earning potential.
Oh, yeah.
So that was really huge for me. Yeah, but then I eventually, because when I started traveling, I think in 2017 or no, maybe 2016, I started traveling. And that was like a really big step for me because it's one thing to do a class here locally. It's another thing to be like, okay, I'm buying tickets. I'm about to get a hotel room, and host this class and see who comes. But my first class, I was going to New York anyway, and it was Valentine's Day. It was 0 degrees, and people showed up, and that was all I needed to see.
In New
I was
York, where
in New
there are
York.
tons of, there's a huge African population, and they come knowing how to braid hair. A lot of them do, and so that, I'm sure, blew your mind.
Absolutely. And I was like, if I can do it here on Valentine's Day, 0 degrees, I can do this anywhere. And that's what gave me that fire. So So yeah, I definitely feel that there's so much that we don't realize that we know that we can truly pass on. And the thing about natural hair versus say cosmetology is there's not, I mean, very slim. There's not a lot of formal training. We don't have
Yes.
cosmetology schools. So
Yep.
who's going to teach you how to braid or how to lock the proper way? Who really
Yep.
wants you to get it? And so there's this idea that, oh, if you're black, you already know how to braid. And it's like, no, not necessarily. And even if you do, doesn't mean that you have the same results or the same braid integrity that you would like to have, right? And so, yeah, there was a great demand out there. There was a great demand, but what gets me going now more so than ever is helping stylists transform because, in employing hairstylists and interacting with a lot of hairstylists, I realize it's like the skills are amazing. It's great if you get that, but there's nothing that is any greater than your well-being as a stylist and the way that you serve as a stylist. And so my heart right now is to help them transform, like, because they're whole stylists. But if I'm just trying to teach
Yeah.
them the technique, that's cool.
Yeah.
I can do that. But more so
Yeah.
than anything, it's the mindset and it's the personal development.
Oh, yeah. No, that's really important, and I would imagine too that ergonomics plays a part in it when in your class, I'm sure you're teaching them how to save the hands, the back,
Yeah,
right? The
for
way you
sure.
stand has something to do with it, and you're
Absolutely.
right, the spirit that you bring into the room, that is really what helps you grow a connection with someone and grow a
Hmm.
clientele. You have a lot of people who are wildly talented, but the personality is garbage. And
Absolutely.
mind, body, soul is everything. Like, it all
Hmm.
has to connect. So
It
I think
does.
that's special that you're honing in on that and sharing that with your, students. They probably
Thank
didn't even know they needed it, did they?
Yeah, most people don't. I mean, I think people come for the sizzle. They almost never really come for the steak, but the steak really is that,
Oh, I love the
because
way you put that. That's cool.
they, well, because I think that, everybody wants to get great. Oh, I want to be able to do these styles or I want to be able to get my parts. And it's like, yeah, those things will draw them, but what will keep them, right? And what keeps them is that true meat of who are you and are you working on becoming a better person? And because the way I see it is like the black hair salon is the center for all things, right? I mean, you think
Yep,
about it, even 100 years ago or however long, like that was a place that we got all of our news. That's where we had community, and
true.
so there has been such a almost disregard for that, and I think that our communities could be better if we as hairstylists are better. And I don't think that we
Exactly.
understand the role that we play in our community, that if we transform, we can
Mhm.
actually transform our communities, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm like one stylist at a time working on their well-being and their mental health and their emotional health, you know?
Oh, it's very true. Very
Yeah.
true. And, that unification, just uniting instead of always being so divided or waiting to see how you can pick somebody else apart to make yourself better than they were, And it's
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
I never, as a stylist, you have clients that come in and this person they went to before did this XYZ. I say, we're all artists. Your art is going to look different than my art. Doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means
Right.
it's not your cup of tea. But that
Hmm.
has, you don't need to bash the last person because guess what's going to happen to you next? They're going to bash you.
You'll be the next one. To the next one in line.
You shall be next. How do you stay motivated to continue to push forward even when things get tough? Because we just talked about mental health
Hmm.
and just having that balance. What do you do? Because I feel that you are connected to God. That's the energy just in some of your words. I feel that there's a relationship there for sure.
Hmm.
So
So,
what do you
what is
Yeah.
that? So what is that? Um, what do I do when I feel stuck? That's a great question. Um, I think more so than everything, like I understand that whatever season I'm in, it is not permanent. And sometimes I realize that I have to surrender to that moment. And so,
Mm.
in every stage of my journey, in order for me to get to like that next stage, like I had to go through a metamorphosis. And so what I realize is that many times we don't realize like the vision that we have for ourselves, like whatever that grand vision is, there's also a version of us that fits that vision. And so I'm
Mm.
asking myself, what version am I to get out of this? Or what version do I need to become to get out of this? And sometimes it is very challenging because like even right now I'm in a transition of like went from being a stylist to a salon owner to an educator, from an educator, and now I'm stepping like full fledged into speaking. And they're
Oh,
still like making this, crossing that bridge. And so, there are moments and cycles and moments where I do feel like, okay, I feel like I'm going in circles. You know what I mean? But I have to ask myself, like, am I? How do I say this? Sometimes we're in circles and we're stuck because of our unwillingness to step out in faith. And so a lot of times people think they're stuck. And I hate to say this because this may sound a little harsh, but it's really we're stuck in our mind because we are unwilling to take that faith move, whatever that faith move may be. We know
makes
what it
perfect
is.
sense. Yeah.
So many times we know what it is, but it's our unwillingness to do that that keeps us and qualifies us to stay where we're at. And so for me, it's like, okay, what can I do that I'm unwilling to do right now? And I'm so scared to do. When it was time for me to teach, I was about to start going in circles because people are asking, they're asking, the signs are all there. But I'm like, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared,
Right,
But
right.
at some point, take the step. Because if I had never taken a step, I would have never been traveling all over to help train stylists. And so when we're stuck, we have to ask ourselves, what step am I unwilling to take? And what version do I need to become in order to fit that unstuck vision?
Oh, for sure. And I think a lot of that is trust. We
Mhm.
don't trust. And so we stay over here because this feels safe. And
For
out
sure.
there feels scary. And I always say when there's fear involved, when it feels scary, but it's a good scary,
Hmm.
well that's the spirit telling you, pushing, go.
Yeah, the
It's
push.
time because when you're not scared, that means you're complacent.
That's
When
it.
nothing feels scary to you, like, "Yeah, I got this, I got this, I got this." I'm like, "Then you ain't going nowhere else."
That's it.
Right?
That's it. Hmm.
Yeah. So would you say your most significant success so far, it just encompasses everything you've ever done? Because listening to your story, I don't even think I can find one single thing that I would call significant, because I
Hmm.
feel that it's so grandiose, the whole experience, that it's all one big package, if that makes sense.
It's funny you say that because I mean, I have really been blessed. Like I said, I found braiding very early in life and I gave it my all.
Yeah.
And I think because I committed to it and I was patient with it, because you have
Yeah.
to think about it. I mean, I was doing hair, let's see, 15 years before I ever got into Essence magazine. But I wasn't thinking about getting there. I just was doing what I loved, and there was nothing else competing for this. Why would I do anything else? And I think that I've just been able to experience, what I've experienced because I was true. And what I mean by true is that sometimes I don't think that we really realize that there's already a path that's already laid out and destined for us. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
sometimes we can do the safe thing. So what I didn't tell you is while I was fighting the law, um, my mother was a nurse, and so she wanted me to go to nursing school because that's safe, that's stable.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
went.
she already knows that path, and she
Right.
can tell you all about it.
Right. So I did that. Like I went to nursing school, I got my license, I worked as a nurse, but it didn't feel true. Right. And so I wasn't on that path, but about 2 years through going through school, working as a nurse for about 4 months. And then I was just like rushing home to get to do hair at my apartment at the time. And every time I would get back to doing hair, I'm like, this feels right. And so with all that being said, I was able to bet on myself fairly early, and I had, the cushion of my parents that if I didn't, make it, I could always fall back on them, type of thing. And yeah, but with all that being said, yeah, to answer your question, I don't know. I just continue to stay with it, and I just continue to believe, and I continue to push limits. And so I've definitely had some great moments in my story, but I'm like, we just getting started. I don't know
I
where we're
know,
going.
you're like, "I just scratched the surface, y'all." No, I believe that. I mean, I can't wait, like, I'm not even gonna say 10 years from now. Imma say,
Mhm.
like, a year from now. I can't you're gonna be transformed. I can already tell, you know?
Thank you.
I see a mission. I just see it for you,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
that's I love it. What
Mhm.
are your, it's a great segue into the next topic I have for you. Like, what are your future goals for your career and your creative work? Like, you do you have any exciting, collaborations other than this one coming up?
Mhm.
Or what do you have on the fire right now?
On the
What's
fire.
happening?
So yeah, so my partner and I, so I have someone who when I first opened my salon, she was 15 years old, and she was like one of my first employees. So she would come in the
Oh,
summertime, and I would let her work. And so over time, she just remained loyal, and so now we're business partners. And so we actually have a podcast. It's called The Rare One, and it's specific to hairstylists. So we just have conversations for all things that are pertaining to hairstylists, but it's not about hairstyling. It's again going back to that whole concept of speaking to the hairstylists and helping them to push past their own internal limits. And so that's one thing, helping to transform hairstylists. And on the personal side, I am coaching, helping people who really feel like they have a voice, but are afraid to use their voice because specifically like entrepreneurs or speakers or anybody who knows that they've been called to use their voice, a lot of times they've been told to hide in various ways, right? And so they don't
mhm.
necessarily like connect even with their voice. Even myself, I used to couldn't stand my voice, and I didn't
Oh, I
realize
can't
that.
stand mine. Editing is like a nightmare. I'm like, "Oh my lord, I'm so tired of listening to me," and I I tell this story, like, my mom, 79 years old, she has this sultry voice.
Hmm.
She answers her phone, she's like, "Hello?" She sounds young.
Yeah.
Me, I thought I was gonna get that voice, but I got my grandmother's voice, and my grandmother sounded exactly like how old she was, and when I'm listening to myself, I'm like, "Oh, no." I hear it. Which, I mean, it's a blessing to have a voice. Don't get me
Right.
wrong.
Right. Right.
But to your point.
Yeah, so just really learning how to really accept yourself so you can really show up to the people that you were assigned to. Because one thing I feel about a voice is that when we're walking in our authenticity, we are assigned to a group of people based off of a sound, right? And so not everybody's going to connect with my message or even my sound or even who I am as a person. And I'm completely okay with that. And I
Can
find that
you
even when it comes
elaborate
to
just a little bit more? Can you elaborate just a little bit more on what you mean by I think I know what you mean, but I want you
hair.
to kinda explain that a little bit more, what you mean by sound. Do you mean like, because everybody has a cadence, when you have a platform, you have a cadence about you that resonates with people or not. Some
Absolutely.
people like your flow or not. Some people are better solo, whereas others, that other person just adds that little flavor needed,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example.
I kind of liken it to something being tribal. So, before us coming to this modern age and world, like we literally lived in tribes. And in those tribes, we had shared experiences, we had shared culture, language, food. And so now that we're dispersed, I do believe that we're still tribal, even though we may not necessarily like understand that this person is a part of our tribe. But one way to identify is for me, it's a sound, and it's not something that I feel that we consciously are like able to recognize. It's like I connect with this person. I don't necessarily know why, but I do believe it's more of a tribal thing. It's like, oh, you're a part of my tribe. And so we hear that
Oh.
term, your vibe attracts your tribe, but I really believe that, that's like a cliche thing, but it very much is true. When you're walking in your authenticity with whoever you are, I think that that sound is going to resonate with the right people. And so what you'll find is that a lot of people, because they don't want to repel people, they want to be acceptable to all people, that they lose their authenticity, right?
Good point.
And so the
Yes.
sound is distorted because now they're watering it down to be appealing to everybody. That doesn't work, right? Because now your tribe can't actually find you because you're not being who you're supposed to be, right?
Oh my gosh. That well
So
said.
thank you. And so me being from Glendale, Arizona, sounding the way I sound, I'm naturally a fast talker. I have to literally tell myself slow down when I'm talking. It's who I am. And I had to embrace that. I mean, when I moved away to Maryland, or when I would go back to Chicago, where my family's from, I would be putting on a different voice, and I didn't realize that I was like trying to be some. I mean, as a child, you're just trying to fit in, and you don't think, oh, I'm trying not to be myself.
Sure.
But over
Yeah.
time, as I got older, I was like, this is not serving me. I feel like a fraud, right? And so
Yep.
I got to a place where I was just like, this is my voice. This is how I sound. You know what I mean? Whoever it attracts, cool. And this is before me even being a speaker. And now I'm just so solid in who I am and however I sound, right? But I think that in all aspects of our life, whether we're not even called to use our voice, just literally living in who we are authentically. And we can lose that through trauma, right? We can
Yes.
lose that because, the things that make us go through pain or go through, for me, it could have been like, oh, you sound like a white girl. Like
Ah,
I literally had
good
certain
Lord.
things said to me that made me think, okay, well, let me try to sound this way or look this way or be this way. And so those events of trauma throughout our lives cause us to become inauthentic. And I was like, I'm not doing it no more. So,
I like that.
mhm. So
Yeah,
yes,
I get it. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So my heart is to really help people to use their voice, because what we don't realize is that there's power and there's authority in our voices. If we understood that, then I think that it would really change the way we perceive and understand. I liken it to this, like, if you're in an alley right now and somebody's coming after you, your first line of defense, like say they're a ways off, is your voice. But if your voice is not, if it's been stolen from you, if it's been muzzled, it keeps you from being able to even defend yourself. Like your power is there, your authority is there. And so in every area of our life, we have to learn how to, one, speak up for ourselves, right?
Yes.
Protect and defend ourselves, right? And then also, two, many of us have a message and we don't even realize we have a message. And so that's what I want to help people do, is to unleash their voice, right? And not
Well,
allow themselves to be fearful of the potential rejection.
well, you've helped me in this conversation. I feel like I need to say more. So
Let's go.
your voice is, to me, it sounds very confident and
Thank
very powerful. And I resonate with you with our what's the word? Inflection, whatever it's called. But
you.
the way we speak, those of us that are from Arizona in the Black community, right?
Mhm.
You're almost deemed not Black enough, or you don't know your history, you don't know your culture. Why are you talking like that? You sound like a white girl. Over the phone, I wouldn't have known that you were Black. Yada,
Mhm.
yada, yada. I'm like, well, what does a Black girl sound like? Because I came out this way
Right.
and I'm 57 years old now. This is me.
Mm.
Didn't change this whole time. So I'm thinking this is just me. It's my voice, right? I don't
Right.
think it's, you're a product of your environment.
Mhm.
If you grow up in the South, you're gonna have a Southern accent.
That's it.
Period. It doesn't matter what race you are to some degree, yeah? And if
Hmm.
you are educated, you're gonna sound educated. If you're uneducated academically, you're gonna sound that way. I mean, that's we're all one in the end.
Hmm. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. You look amazing, by the way.
I do? Oh, Lord. I mean, I wasn't fishing for compliments, but I will take them.
No,
Thank
I
you.
know you were, but you look, yes, you blew my mind. I'm like, 50 what?
Yeah,
Okay.
girl. It is rough in them 50s streets, let me tell you. Because I look at myself sometimes, I'm like, "Ooh, this is not the same face, but you know what? I still have one and I'm gonna roll with it because I
That's
could
it.
be not here. So I'm gonna choose to embrace being here."
For
So
sure, for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, that self acceptance is key because if we don't accept ourselves, who will? You know,
that's
we
right.
have to get past that, and I think specifically now with technology and all the images that are just like bombarding us, like we feel the need without even really knowing to be something other than ourselves, right? And
Right.
that's a lie and it's a trick, and it really robs us of everything that really belongs to us. Because how can it's like me trying to receive my Amazon package at somebody else's house. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Right.
it's not going to be delivered there. I have to go back to my house where I live. You know what I mean? To get the packages that are for me. And so we have
Correct.
to ask ourselves, like, am I living in my authenticity? Because that's where we're going to receive the blessings.
Oh my gosh. Speak and preach because all of that is the truth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your podcast, I'm definitely going to be adding that to my listens.
Thank
And I
you.
at the end of the show, I'll have you, kind of tell my audience all about where they can find you and, kind of your podcast, your education platform, your all your handles, all the things.
Mhm.
And you're right. And that's another thing, that layer of the um, algorithm on social media, how you're chasing that versus just being who you are. Whoever resonates with you, they're going to find you. They're going to
Yes.
find you. And
Yes.
so, and do you really algorithm wise, do you even want those people to find you? Because they're finding, to your point, the fake you.
That's
If
it.
you're beating to that drum, so to
That's
speak.
it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
remember I had
That's it.
somebody run my social media.
Alexa totally just hijacked everything. I'm like, did you not Alexa, Siri? I'm like, she said she's trying to give me the definition of beating to that drum. I'm like, get out of here, girl.
I
Please.
love it. But
Essence, is there a particular story or moment in your career that stands out, especially impactful?
um no, I feel like the ones that I told you were pretty much like, the biggest ones that I can really think of. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that concludes our interview. I definitely want to talk more to you off camera because I feel like whatever tools that you have used to get to where you are
Hmm.
mentally, I think those are more important than anything
Without a
because
doubt.
you sound whole, you sound sound, you sound, like I said, confident, sure of yourself. Sounds like you have the backing to support all the things that are coming out of your mouth. You're not
Hmm.
just talking, you know. And I'm sure that came with hard work, with studying under whoever, whatever book you read, whatever person who inspired you, that you listen to, the music, the
Hmm.
podcast, all the things. I want to know who all these people are because
Right.
I think, you pay it forward and you can help the next person because the resources are important too, and who you're receiving your information from is important.
Yeah. without
Yeah.
a doubt. And that's one of the biggest things that I share with stylists is that, you know, expanding your mind is going to be the greatest thing for you. I always say your business can only grow to the extent that you do as a person. And so while people are trying to grow their business, they don't realize that they would just focus on growing themselves, their business will naturally grow, right?
Yes.
Because what we don't understand about businesses is like it's not the doing of the hair, it is the management of your own emotions. You know what I mean? It's the having boundaries, which in business is policies. It's the
Yes.
being able to have hard conversations. It's the so there are so many things that if we don't understand that about ourselves, it's going to make our business flop, right?
Yep.
And
Because
so
everything is their fault. It's this
yes,
person, that person, everything but me.
exactly. So I highly recommend books because books have definitely greatly impacted me, along with, certain people who I might have met one time, but they were just these virtual mentors. And I just literally just soaked up everything that they said because I just found it to be true.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, Essence, I do something at the end of all my interviews just
Mhm.
because I'm corny and I have to put that in here. And so I do a rapid fire 60-second blowout, I call it. And because
Okay.
I'm a hairdresser. And you don't know what I'm going to ask you, but I'll give you 60 seconds to answer as fast as you can. If you get
Okay.
stumped, I just keep going.
Okay.
Right? Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Let me set this timer. And I was annoyed by the glare most of that interview. So I took my glasses off. But for this, I'm going to have to put them back on. Can't see
Okay.
nothing. All righty. Here we go. Favorite hairstyle to create?
Twist.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
What's your go-to hair product?
Something gel for my edges.
Favorite place to travel?
Caribbean.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Most used emoji?
Laughing.
Cats or dogs?
None.
Favorite hair trend right now?
Freeform locks.
Dream celebrity client?
Lauren Hill.
One word to describe your style. Your
Silly.
personal style. Silly.
Yeah.
Spiritual or holy?
Uh, a little bit of both, you know?
Fly, drive, or walk?
Fly, drive, or walk. I feel like all of them, but fly.
Yes. What's your superpower?
Helping people believe in themselves.
Love it. What if you woke up and you were a man?
What do you mean? What?
What if you
What?
woke up one day and all of a sudden you're Essence, but you're not female, you're male, you're a man?
I don't know. I
Does
guess.
anything change?
I don't. That's a wild question. I don't know.
That one always stumps people. They're like, huh. Because, we're very different. Like, they're
Mm,
able to do things we can't do. They're stronger, physically stronger.
right.
Yeah, there's some,
I'm like,
some
take me back, please.
you're like, no, I want to be a woman.
Snap me back.
I love that. That's all perfect. How can our audience find you?
For sure. Well, I'm Essence China. It's my first and middle name. My mother was very creative.
I know she
Um,
was.
yeah.
Where did
And
she come up
so
with that name?
hmm,
How did she come up with Essence?
she honestly said that there was an Essence magazine that she found, but and she didn't have a name for me at that time, and they were just calling me by my nickname. So they used to just call me China just because of my eyes at the time. They were like really, a particular way. So
Do you know I have a very good client. Her name is China for the same
is that right?
reason. Her first
That's
name is
wild.
China. Yep.
That's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, my name is Essence China, and my mom was just very creative as well. So that's how I got my name. But yeah, so I'm Essence China on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I do YouTube lives from time to time, speaking to help people believe in themselves. And the podcast that we have is called The Rare One. And that is on the Rare Essence Academy platform on YouTube.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you carving some time out to come on. It's been a long time coming. And, hopefully somewhere down the line, we can, you can jump back on, I can jump on yours, whatever. We'll
For
meet
sure.
again.
For sure.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Essence. Have a good
Yeah.
one. Bye.
Bye-bye.